classical music. You know, nobody wrote symphonies like Beethoven, Bach, or Mozart. Problem is, these guys are all dead. They're not writing anymore. Or are they? Here's Christina with a high-tech tale of 2 symphonies.
Here at this recital hall on the campus of the University of California, Santa Cruz, the classical greats like Mozart and Bach are sung here by choirs and played by orchestras all the time. And thanks to the pioneering efforts of one professor here, those greats are still writing for performances. Like this piano concerto, for example. It sounds like a Mozart piece, and even the most trained classical musician has identified the master as its author. Many composers are shocked to learn that this was created by a computer. UCSC music professor David Cope is the mastermind behind this computer program that has written thousands of published compositions. They're pieces that a trained ear would instantly attribute to any one of the great classical composers. Professor Cope says he got the idea for the program 16 years ago. A writer's block had paralyzed him, and he worried he would not be able to finish an opera he was paid to compose.
I simply couldn't write that opera. I couldn't figure out why C sharp was any different or better than C natural. I just had, nothing came to me.
At the time, Cope had developed an interest in computers, something many of us didn't all know much about then. But Cope was hooked.
And I said, you know, what if I could create a program that would create Bach chorales and Cope and Stravinsky and Mozart and anybody? And the only way I could think of doing that was to create a program that was built around a database of music. Let's say I had a database of Bach chorales, all 371 of them, and I had a little program that was sat on top of this, the smallest program I could make, that would analyze that music and then create a new Bach chorale that wasn't one of the Bach chorales that was in the database, but sounded like them all.
If he could do that, he thought, Cope could perhaps feed his very own music into the computer, and it would create brand new compositions he might never have thought up by himself.
Could I write a program that was adaptable enough that it could write Bach from a Bach database, Cope from a Cope database, Mozart from a Mozart database? And so I set about working on it, and I spent about 2 years really working on a program that could do that.
After several years of mostly self-taught computer programming and gazing at the view outside his Santa Cruz office window, Cope came up with his virtual music program he called EMI, or Experiments in Musical Intelligence.
Computers add and subtract, that's all they do. They're sophisticated tools. Maybe not a shovel, but certainly like about the level of a car, a nice, really good car.
How does the program recognize what a composer's real style is and then replicate it?
There's something more about style, and style, as I define it for my project, is all that's in common between 2 different pieces by the same composer.
To some, it was almost like bringing the greats, Bach, Mozart, and many others, back to life.
As confusing as it all is, I'm hoping that in the next 20 years or so that the music will catch on with some people. But I think it will catch on in part because it's rare now. It's something of, it's historically interesting because there's no more of it being made and no chance of any more of it being made. No chance.